If you have tight muscles or chronic pain and need a good massage, but don't trust the oil rubbing therapist to do a great job, then you need to learn these 9 tips to give yourself the best self-massage. With the first one being one of my favorites, which is to peel away the muscle. Now, the goal of peeling away the muscle is to pretty much help separate the tissues away from the joints, the bones, and other tissues, of course, around them. And the whole reason why we want to do this is normally when we're tight or we have chronic pain, when we move, tissues usually slide next to each other as opposed to against each other. And what's happening here is basically they're just kind of stuck together. And when they're doing this, it feels tighter or you may have pain. So by peeling away the tissues here, by peeling away the muscle, we're going to allow those tissues to once again slide on top of each other as opposed to with each other. Now, some common examples for peeling away the muscle is using a massage cane to peel away the erectors away from the spine. You can also use something like an MB5 ball or a smaller lacrosse ball to help separate the tissues in the glutes and the sacrum and the hips and all that. You can even try to separate the biceps and triceps away from the bone, or even the simple one is going to be the SCM away from the rest of the tissues around it. Those are just some of my favorite spots to perform this technique, but you can definitely do it in other spots. Now, tip number 2, we're going to be using upper back pain as our example, but it applies to pretty much the entire body. And that is, if you have pain in one spot of the body, then try looking on the other side for the problem. You see, what ends up happening here is when you have upper back pain from working on a computer all day, those muscles end up becoming lengthened and stretched out to their limit, which is why they feel tight. Think of a rubber band getting pulled all the way to its limit and then trying to string it, it's going to feel tight. Well, they're stretched out not because of just gravity and things like that. It's also because the muscles in the front of the body may be shortened and locked in that position, and they may be pulling the body, pulling the head forward, which creates that stretched out position. The way you got to think about this is that even though you're feeling the pain in the upper back, you got to ask yourself, where is that pain coming from? And chances are it's coming from the front of the body, like the chest and the shoulders, which is why you're also feeling it in the upper back, because it's shortened, which stretches that out, and you feel that stretch, but you don't feel the shortened muscles. Now, tip number 3 is to give yourself a self-massage on a pain scale from 1 to 10 to aim for a 7 or an 8. The idea here is that we want to actually apply enough pressure to change the tissues, but we don't want to get to the point where you can't breathe and you're pretty much tenting, because if you're tenting, the muscle is going to tent and it's not going to release. So we got to play with that line a little bit where it's uncomfortable, but it's not painful, and you can still breathe throughout the entire movement and technique. And with that said, tip number 4 is to actually breathe throughout the entire massage. I think a lot of us, when we're trying to apply a lot of pressure to ourselves, we're focused more on that than trying to take in big, deep breaths with your stomach and your chest. Try to expand all of it in and out as you're releasing the tight muscles. And again, when you combine that with tip number 3 of trying to get to that pain scale of a 7 to 8, combine that with your deep breathing and all that, you'll definitely be able to release your tissues a lot faster than you realize. Now, another tip that kind of plays on that is going to be tip number 5, and that is to extend the time frame for your self-massage. For this, a lot of people kind of just roll back and forth or do the massage for about 30 seconds on themselves. And I get it, it's uncomfortable and you don't want to be there very long. We all have ADHD these days. We all want to go back to our smartphones. But here you have to spend at least 1 to 2 minutes working on those different muscles and those different areas in those muscles. The best way I like to think about this is if you were to pay for a massage and they only spend 30 seconds working on the tight muscle that you're complaining about, I'm pretty sure you're gonna be pretty pissed off about it, which is why you shouldn't do that to yourself. Spend a solid 1 to 2 minutes, maybe even up to 5 minutes if you're going gentle and progressively getting a little more harder. You know, you want to spend a good amount of time on these different muscles if they're creating the tension and your pain. 30 seconds isn't going to do shit. Now, tip number 6, very simple, just to simply move slower. The idea isn't to roll back and forth for 2 minutes on that painful spot. I want you to go nice and slow and try to feel the tissues that you are self-massaging here, so you can actually feel a difference in what's happening. You can feel the actual changes in the body as opposed to just the pain itself, the uncomfortable. Now, tip number 7 is to massage and stretch at the same time. I don't literally mean stretch the muscle out at the same time, but if you can put the muscle on a stretch, then not only is that going to kind of lock down those trigger points and those fascia restrictions, which makes it easier to pinpoint them, but you're also putting the tissues in a lengthened position, which is going to help them open up a lot easier. Now, on the flip side of that, if you need to get deeper into the body, for example, you want to work on the psoas or you want to work on the pec minor, then you may want to actually passively contract the muscles, especially the superficial ones. So with the psoas, for example, we know that the core muscles, your six pack, the rectus abdominis, that's all superficial. It's all on top of your psoas, right? So if you're standing up or if you're laying flat on your stomach, those muscles are stretched out. So you got to think about it again. If you're trying to push through a stretched out piece of tissue, it's going to be a lot harder, which is why you want to now passively shorten these muscles. And you can do that very easily by just planting your feet and having your knees in the air. By doing this, your hips come closer to your core, your rectus abdominis and all the muscles shorten passively. And then with that, now it allows you to get into the deeper area, into the deeper muscles without having to fight the superficial muscles. Just think about a stretched out rubber band. Once again, if it's stretched out, it's nice and tight. It might be hard to push through it, but if it's coming closer and looser, then you definitely have some wiggle room to get in there a lot deeper. Now, tip number 8 is to pretty much work on the muscles that aren't making a sound. If you ever think about pain, right, a lot of us tend to have it in the same exact areas as other people. We tend to have it in the upper neck, maybe headaches, lower back, right? Maybe in the glutes and the hips. For the most part, that's going to be like 80 to 90% of us, with a few of us having some random ones here and there. But with that said, go into the body, go into yourself and look for the areas that don't ever make a sound, that are never feeling painful. Because chances are those are going to be your culprits, the ones that are a pain in the ass. When you press on them, and probably full of trigger points, they're just not making a sound here. Some great examples here are going to be the glute medius right on the side of the hips. That muscle moves 5 out of 6 motions and does so much work. So there's a good chance it's going to be full of trigger points. So go ahead and poke around there. You probably find some stuff. Try the triceps, or maybe even try the fibularis, the lateral calf muscle. Once again, a lot of people have trigger points there that they don't realize can create a lot more issues up into the upper body. So again, tip number 8, make sure to check out the muscles that aren't making a sound. And this brings me to tip number 9, which is to exercise after your massage. If you want to keep your pain away, especially after you got rid of it with the massage, then you need to do some sort of exercises to build better tension in a new direction. One of my biggest theories for a lot of us who have pain, bad posture, muscle tightness in general, is that because we're always stuck in one position or another, usually typing on a computer, driving with the body forward pretty much, because of that, the muscles in the back, the ones that your PTs are always having you train, they're usually weak and they're usually stretched out. And that's where you want to build that brand new tension. But you have to do it after you perform the massage first. You see, the idea here is, if we're going to use upper back for our example here, if the chest is short and tight, you're feeling pain in the upper back because the muscles are stretched out. Well, once you release that tension here, those muscles are a lot looser and they're a lot free. They're not getting pulled anymore, which now gives you the best opportunity to strengthen them, to shorten them, to get them stronger. Because if you try to do that before massaging the muscles in the front, then you got to remember they're getting pulled by those muscles. So when you try to strengthen those muscles, you're also trying to strengthen it and pull on those tight muscles at the same time. First, you got to massage out that tightness in the front of the body. You then have to stretch out or improve that mobility in the joints and all that to help like kind of stretch it out. And when you do all that, the muscles in the back will become nice and shortened, which makes them easier to strengthen and get them stronger a lot faster. It's a 3-step process here, maybe even a 2-step process, but it's definitely not one at a time. All right, that's it for this video. Let me know in the comment section which tip was your favorite. Other than that, I'll see you in the next one.